First, I want to offer my condolences. It's been almost a year since the crowd crush that claimed 159 lives and caused another 196 injuries in Itaewon, Seoul, South Korea. On October 29, 2022, approximately 100,000 people congregated in the narrow streets of Itaewon to celebrate Halloween. Many of those people were teenagers and young adults. Some were dressed in costumes, celebrating the upcoming party holiday. Just a bunch of people whose lives were just beginning, just wanting to have a little fun. Itaewon is the kind of place where young citizens and tourists congregate to enjoy some of the fun experiences Korea has to offer. It's a neighborhood full of bars and nightclubs and restaurants and other staples of nightlife, so reasonable to assume it's a place that can get pretty packed. The crowding issue is something the city has been concerned about since at least 2020, but they neglected to make any changes. Seoul actually has a real-time crowd size prediction system that is based on mobile phone data in the area, but on the night of the incident, the system was inactive. There were only 137 on-duty police officers in the area, not nearly enough to protect the 100,000 people at the event. It's probably something in the mix of slightly more than 1% police protection for the total crowd size, and I suck at math, but that sounds about right in my head. I don't know if law enforcement was just stretched thin that night since there was also a protest going on. Officers had been dispatched to deal with that, but suffice it to say, it wasn't nearly enough. While police notifications leading up to the event gave people warning to beware of theft, alcohol, drugs, and sex crimes, there was no crowding warning. The police admitted following the incident, there had been no crowd control plan in place as there was no central organizer. 4 hours prior to the crush, 11 emergency calls were placed to the Seoul police station, hashing out their concerns at the size of the crowd that was gathering, but there was no intervention. What was alleged to have started the crush was a group of young men who started pushing people. Money fell to the ground, and with all the commotion, there was just no escape, and people were being trampled. Those who attempted to seek shelter from the mayhem in nearby establishments were panicked to find that those establishments had already locked up for the night. Videos taken from the incident showed 5 to 6 layers of people just piled on top of each other. 3 off-duty United States Forces Korea soldiers managed to pull themselves up on a ledge and did their best to rescue as many others as they could by pulling them up too. People were suffocating, altercations were taking place in the commotion, and yet some people were completely oblivious to the mayhem taking place around them, to the point there are videos of people just dancing in the way of emergency personnel attempting to cut through the crowd. So many attempts to contact the police were thwarted by the sheer number of calls being made, eventually leading to complete shutdown of the congested phone lines in that area. Eventually at around 10:20 that night, 4 ambulances were dispatched to the scene, then the National Fire Agency in the Interior Ministry, and not long after that, 848 emergency personnel, including all available personnel in Seoul, plus another 140 vehicles and 346 firefighters from across the country showed up and did as much damage control as they could. They resuscitated many, and those they could not, their bodies were lined up on the street and covered with blankets and clothing. Unconscious victims were transported to the hospital. An emergency message was finally dispatched encouraging people to return home so the situation could be dealt with, and thankfully, the government did provide some relief to the survivors and surviving family members. On November 1st, 2022, they pledged 15 million won or $13,112.46 USD to cover funeral costs and 20 million won or $17,483.28 USD as compensation. They even opened a one-stop support center a few days later to help those impacted by the incident. While none of this will bring those people back, I'm glad they did something to help those affected. My heart goes out to the survivors and surviving family members, and I just hope this incident incited some much needed change to avoid something this terrible occurring in Itaewon in the future.